Hello, everybody. This is Jan Moray, and welcome to Greet the Week. I have here my co-host, Mona Duncan.
Hello.
And this week, we're going to talk about going down the rabbit hole and about prestigious and going from esteem to trickery. So what's this all about, Mona?
Well, it's more about attitude than it is about anything. And I thought, well, how am I going to introduce this attitude thing? And we had talked last week about discipline and how that word had changed. And words are always changing depending on how we use them and abuse them and add to them and take away from them and that kind of stuff. And so I was looking at and thinking about, Lewis Carroll's Alice in Wonderland.
Right.
And all the adventures and misadventures that she had and the fears and the lessons learned and all of that. And I kind of equated that with Carl Jung and our dreams and the interpretation that our weird dreams is really our unconscious, our unthinking, trying to make sense of what the strange things we're going through. And that in our dream, when we think about all those characters, the Mad Hatters or the whatever, that is really us. That
Right.
We're dreaming about us, that everything in our dream is us. It's just a part of ourselves that we're not yet familiar with, or maybe are afraid to become familiar with.
Or don't want to, yeah.
Yeah, or don't want to.
We're in denial, huh?
Yeah. And so I thought that we would just kind of look more at how being true to ourselves and being authentic and being, in control of our life, taking charge of our life, but not being in control of others. And just kind of look at some ways that we can look at life and words and things a little differently. Yesterday at our church here in Waco, Texas, we had a dinner, and it was, for the Irish. We have some Irish descendants there among us that we love dearly, and kind of to celebrate their heritage and so forth. We had, and in the process of the meal, it was, I don't know if it was an Irish meal or not. It wasn't Irish stew. It was it was Mexican rice and chili. But the thought was there.
You're right.
So someone made the comment directly to me and said, "Oh, this chili is way too hot, don't you think?" And I said, "Well, it's kind of warm." And I got to thinking later, whenever someone is asking, "What do you think?" there's another person that quite frequently will give a big spiel on something and say, "Well, am I right or not?" And I thought that whenever we need that agreement, maybe we're just not so sure of ourselves. Not that we have to always be sure of ourselves. Not that we can't ask for others' insights and so forth.
That is a loaded question to ask. You have to be ready to receive the answer no matter how they answer you when you say something like that.
Exactly. And sometimes
the first thing you want to do is you feel like you need to agree and say, "Oh, yeah, you're right." But a lot of times you don't agree, and then that makes it a little uncomfortable.
Exactly. And that's what I was wanting us to talk about, is how do you say things that you're still true to yourself and you're not going from esteem to trickery, but you're being honest with yourself and honest with the person, but yet it's not disconnecting, but it's staying connected. And knowing that just because someone asks for your opinion doesn't always mean they're going to want it.
Right. So then I go back with don't ask if you don't want it. If you
Right.
aren't always going to agree with you, and if you are not comfortable with somebody disagreeing with you, you're not comfortable with conflict.
Right.
Maybe it's not good for you to ask that question.
Yeah. And Dr. Glasser, of all the filters that we have in our vehicle, one of them is that valuing filter, and that we have to value it on some level or we will not take it in and embrace it. And sometimes those things that we take in and embrace, is not, well, I think sometimes we take in and embrace those things we want to fight against, and can become, we have it in our quality world because there was a value to it. But several years ago, I've written a book, Creating Value. And in that, I interviewed all kinds of people to get their input as to what is value and what does it mean and so forth. And one of the people is Jeff Bird, who is a realtor here in the Waco area. And he said, I loved his position. He said that the difference in a con man and in a salesman, a salesperson or a con person, is value. That the salesperson that values the relationship with the client is going to make a sale or make a pitch that's for the good of the client. Whereas a con is someone that's making a pitch for the good of themselves.
So there are some salespeople then that are con people.
Yes. And Jeff said that in his little organization that he had just recently established, that their goal was to never do more than you say you will do, but never do less. Because, sometimes people say, well, under promise and over deliver and all this. And he said he sees that as a con. But
to over deliver is a con.
Right. And that never do more than you say you will do, but always do what you say you will do and never do less than you say you will do. And
so
that
what were you thinking on not doing more than what you say you will do?
Well, because I don't really know.
Okay.
And we could think more about that.
Okay.
But the under promise and over deliver comes across as a gimmick. In the say, doing more than. And that in the scheme of things, that whenever you just do what you say you will do, then people trust you and they'll come back to you again and again and again.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I've had people say, well, they'll do this, and then they do a lot more. And that would frustrate me because I didn't want that part. I wanted to do that part myself, of the port, whatever the topic was, And so I've learned to be careful about what I ask for or agree to with so it's clear for both of us.
Right. Exactly. So thanks for asking that question, and thanks for that comment. I had a guy just not too long ago that did some yard work for me, and I mentioned the fact that I was going to fill in with some gravel,
Mm-hmm.
And he comes back the next day, he had gravel.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking, wait a minute here. And I felt like that was just a real big con.
Mm-hmm.
Because he's asking you to pay for the extra.
Right.
He didn't do it as an extra service on what you already paid for. He's like, oh, here I can get some more money.
Right. Yes. And although he supposedly had gotten a real good deal on the gravel that he brought by, I hadn't asked for it, and I really didn't appreciate it. Mm-hmm. And, we had to do some negotiating there. It turned out to be a good deal, and I'm all for good deals. So. But you have to look at those things. And then in interviewing for my book, I interviewed Bernard Rappaport, who is the founder of American Income Life Insurance Company, that is still very, very popular. And he's personal friends of presidents and former presidents. And anyway, he was gracious enough to talk with me, and he said that his philosophy was, with his agents and so forth, that if they did not believe that the people needed insurance more than they needed a commission, they would never be successful.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not going, if you want that esteem, don't use trickery to try to get it. And how that words morph and they change, and that originally prestige was seen as someone that was trying to trick,
Oh, is that right? The meaning of the word prestige? Okay.
Really?
Yeah, that prestige. In fact, up here it says prestige comes to us from the Latin, meaning full of tricks or deceitfulness.
That is so weird the way words can morph, like you use that word in your blurb, from something that's totally opposite from what the original intent of the word was.
What the original intent of the word for. And so it began, it was that dazzling, blinding influence. And it began to be seen as trickery. And I guess as people who maybe had this, that really embellished, became true to their word, it began to change the meaning of it.
Okay, I can see that. Because when you're trying to sell somebody to something they really don't need, then you end up having to do a very good sales job, and so you're so polished. It's so believable, but it's too good to be true. But they fall for it anyway.
Right. It's that it's being the con person that is smooth-tongued that doesn't follow through on, and it's the one that is so confident that they can get whatever they're after that they become deceitful. And to be careful of that. My brother was the handyman and had his own construction company, and he would go work with people, and if he was finishing up, it was still in the day that they had to go find their check and pen to write the check with and so forth. And he would tell me, he says, well, I'm completely through, and here's my bill, and while you get your check, is there anything you need me to do, like tighten up, cabinet doors or anything like that? And he would stay many times an hour, a couple hours later, just doing little odd and end things for people.
Okay.
And I'm telling you,
with their permission.
Yeah, definitely with their, and asking them, is there anything else? And maybe that's an under promise and over deliver, but do exactly what you say you will do. And so
don't ask that question either unless you're willing to do whatever they come up with, because you might be surprised as to what they ask you to do.
Yeah. And Jan, when you and I started this little Greek the Week thing, the original, that we talked about, and my original intent was to change the concept of, oh no, not Monday.
Right, I remember that.
Yay, it's TGIF. This is the day we look for because life can really begin now. My personal goal was to begin to change the fact that, Mondays are part of the seasons of life. They are part of the spring, the summer, the fall, that things, it's on a cyclical basis. And if we can't enjoy it all, then what are we doing to enjoy our life? How are we harming ourselves? That to have a sincere, genuine appreciation of both, of beginning a task and ending a task, and then having time off to enjoy with friends and family and so forth on the weekends. But to live life more on an even keel.
Yeah. To look forward to the week coming up, and how can we make it so that we do embrace the week, embrace a new week, and that let's see what exciting things are going to happen this week instead of, oh no, I got to go back to work or whatever.
Right, and it's not to discount the weekend. It's not to discount it at all. It's to include it. It's to be inclusive.
Mondays are fresh starts.
Fresh starts.
Right. Fresh start Monday.
Right. And sometimes my list is still there from Monday that hasn't gotten done, but it's okay.
Exactly. And in goal setting, and is to write down the most important things you need to do the next day before you even go to bed that night, whether it's work things or anything, and then begin to tackle them right up front, first thing. And you don't always get everything accomplished, but you get more accomplished right up front than putting things off.
Yeah. Or even just having a list, because sometimes you forget what it is you were going to do, and it was fresh in your mind a few days before, and I need to do that. And then when it comes time, you've got a few minutes to spare. Well, I know I've got all kinds of things to do, but I can't remember any of them. What are you going to do? And you spend all this time trying to remember. By the time you remember what it was, and it's time to do something.
Right. But we're multidimensional people, we just celebrate everything. And be aware, or be conscious, if you will, that when we are becoming that con artist, or when we are, not fulfilling what we said we would do, and not being in the long run, not being really true to ourselves.
Yeah.
It's to always be authentic, realizing that each voice has its own point of view, and that whether that person is asking, well, am I right or not, or what do you think?
Right.
It's to think about how we answer it, and if we are being genuine and authentic. And then I think of another thing, like the Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz, that she went through a lot of things too, and realized the fact that although it was a lot of good adventures, there's no place like home.
Right. But sometimes you have to go through the motions and go through that to realize for yourself, because nobody can tell you that.
Right.
You have to come to that conclusion on your own. And I think that's huge when dealing with your children, when they have an idea of what they want to do, and you keep telling them, no, that's not the way to do it. Sometimes they just have to figure it out on their own, and many times they'll come back to the same conclusion that you started with, but it means so much more to them, and they'll stick with it so much better if it's something that they realize that, yeah, this is the way I need to do it.
Yeah, and I mean, we will not agree to anything. We will not, unless we really agree to it, or we will not make it meaningful in our life unless we see some meaning to it, unless we agree to it.
Yeah.
And
that's why logic doesn't work. Even though I love to I have all kinds of reasons. I like to use the logic and say, can't you understand this? It's the emotion that's running it.
It is.
To satisfy that emotion before they'll come back to listening to the logic behind it.
Right. And if we want to drive our vehicles without popping a wheelie and going with those emotions back there, going with the thinking and the acting, it's to realize that although they're all connected, and that as we are more real with what we are thinking and doing in keeping with that, that we can stay on an even keel, because we're making traction as we go forward. And then we feel good about what we promised or didn't promise, or what we did.
Yeah.
That we have those good feelings that follow because we have. And so
sometimes you promise something and then you realize that you really don't agree with it. And so to be able to face that and address the person who's going to be disappointed that you didn't do it, then you have to own that and be able to speak about it, and where you're not hiding or running away or not facing it. Say, hey, I changed my mind. Let's talk about this. I can't. I realize I really don't want to do this. But to own that and to be honest with yourself for that.
Exactly. And that's where I was kind of headed whenever I said, with the Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz, there's no place like home, is the fact that home is someplace we can be authentic.
Right.
Usually.
Hopefully. Well, yeah, right.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
Yeah, that we really can be authentic. And that I want to really be me. Now, I'm not opposed to using wrinkle cream. But at the same time, I want to be just as authentic as I can,
Yeah, right.
But taking care of the life that we have while we're here in this form, and being healthy, and whatever we can do to learn more, whether it's logic or skills or whatever, so that we can be more connecting instead of disconnecting, and have more people that want to be certified with and realize the fact that we can be in control of our own lives more than.
It's interesting from the start of reality therapy and then choice theory. we speak a lot about individual needs, meeting our needs, but in fact, Dr. Glasser always added a rider saying, whilst we respect the needs of others, which is a value.
Right.
You know, and in fact, when he was writing choice theory, for a while he considered calling it a psychology of us, to contrast with the psychology of the world, which is a psychology of me. So you always have this connecting and this respect for others and this value for others, which goes beyond psychology. It's into the world of morality and philosophy rather than psychology. You know?
Exactly. And it's that looking at the fact that, you know, we're all more alike than we're different.
Yeah.
And sometimes as we can have discussions, we can see, oh, you're seeing it that way and I'm seeing it this way, but it's the same thing, or basically the same thing. That we're more alike than we are different. And it's being authentic, it's being real, it is without harming others. It's doing what is for the good of the whole, because not only do we have these basic needs, you know, one of those needs that we have, or one of those things that we are wired with, is compassion. Babies will start crying whenever another baby's crying.
Yeah.
And we have compassion. And we've talked about this before. Sometimes we have to actually diss someone, you know, a hobo standing on the street sign wanting funds for food or whatever. We have to diss them and think, well, they're just a lowly bum, in order to build us up to go buy them without giving them a quarter. We have to begin to disconnect from the needy, and that we have so many needs in this world, and all of the shootings and all of the floods and the tornadoes and the hurricanes, and people, you know, in our own community, houses burned and all that kind of stuff. There's so much need there. And it is in our compassion that reaches out to meet that need. But we have, you know, sometimes we have to, put a filter there, or we can cross a boundary of trying to do more than we really have the means with which to do it.
Yeah. Now you talk about the person on the road that's asking for money. I mean, that's so prevalent around here these days. And you know, the first impulse is, okay, I don't want to give him any money, but I don't want to make eye contact with him either, because I'm feeling guilty because I have something and he doesn't. But what I've started doing is I'll go by and I will smile at them and wave. So I feel a little bit better, because it's like I acknowledge that they're a person and that they have needs, but I don't want to be ashamed of my decision not to give them something, but at least to acknowledge that I do see you there, and good luck to you, and I wish you the best, and just kind of wave and.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's really beautiful. I know one time I stopped, this person had, and it was a super, super hot day, and they had the sign and they were standing on the side of the road, and I pulled over and I gave them $10.
Oh, wow.
And I thought, you know, I don't know if that person, what they've got on that sign, if that's legitimate or not. But I'm telling you what, if they're out here in the heat of this Texas heat, they are earning their money. And it has to be a little bit humiliating to stand out there and hold that sign up. I don't care who you are, even if you do make a lot of big bucks by people throwing money at you, you know? And I had a friend that said, if I have it to help and I don't, then that's between me and God, me and the universe, me and, you know. But if I have it and I don't help, then that's, I mean, if I do have it and I don't help, that's between me and whatever it is that follows us, you know, the karma or whatever you want to call it. So, but not give you, sometimes people say, well, they'll give you the shirt off of their back.
Mm-hmm.
And that sounds real generous, but what about self-care? Because it's all a both and. It's not an either or. It's both and. And if we don't take care of ourselves, we certainly can't take care of anyone else. So
we can provide support to organizations that we know that legitimately meet. And I've known some people carry a small sack or a Ziploc baggie with them to hand out, you know, just with maybe a toothbrush, a toothpaste, maybe a couple of breakfast bars, you know, something that would have good shelf life, and hand those, but not a monetary gift.
Right.
What my husband has done is that they'll have a luncheon at the office, and they'll have a lot of food left over.
Oh, yeah, great.
Collect all that food and go to, there's this one overpass where a lot of people congregate there, they sleep there and stuff, and he'll just say, here, take this, and you know, they all come in and they're all real grateful to receive.
Right. Now that's awesome.
And,
yeah.
Because you know it's just going to go to waste. Somebody's going to throw it out, or maybe somebody else will take it home, but that way you feel like you are giving them something that they're going to use in the way it's supposed to, that they should use it. Because with money, you never know how they're going to use the money.
Right.
At least for me, that's the thing that I struggle with, is I don't want to be helping their drug habit or whatever it is.
Yeah, and what we think will help someone else may help them and it may not.
Yeah, right. That's right. That's right. Yeah.
And sometimes what we're doing is really a selfish motive. I think of someone that, well, back whenever McDonald's had the little beanie babies in a kid's, fun bag. Yeah, Happy Meal had the little, and anyway, I knew this person that was collecting those little beanie babies because just knew that they was going to be a big market one of these days, and would go buy those things. And she took the beanie babies out, but she would take the Happy Meals down to the people that were living under the bridge.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Wonderful.
Well, it sounded wonderful. Until, they started throwing them back at her.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Aww.
And sometimes we can think that we're really helping someone and we're just humiliating them.
Yeah.
And it just all goes back to the fact that what we want to be as prestigious comes across as trickery, comes across as deceitful.
It's not their value.
Yeah. Yeah, but that also brings up another issue, is to look at the intent. When somebody is doing something for you, even though it's something you really didn't want, instead of looking at the action, is to try to understand the intent.
Definitely.
Were they trying to be helpful, or were they trying to make fun of you, or and so to try to go on the intent. I remember a couple years ago when my son first started going out with his fiance, she got me a gift for Christmas, and I had met her once, just briefly, and when my son gave it to me, I was just so excited. I said, "Oh, well, tell her thank you. That's so sweet of her." And he goes, "But Mom, you haven't opened the present yet. You don't know what she got you." I said, "It really doesn't matter what she got me. I just feel so touched that she made the effort to get me something." And I think that's a big thing too, is to try to see what was their intent when they were giving you something or doing something. Even if they over-delivered, were they trying to be helpful, or were they trying to trick you?
Right.
So to understand where they're coming from.
Which really brings us back to, the whole theme for today is that prestige originally meant trickery, until began to realize that maybe what was fantastic about it and seemed too good to be true, and how now we say, well, it probably is, but it seems too good to be true.
Yeah.
That the word that was originally seen as being trickery and deceitful became, because of the intent of the people's heart, and you could see how it played itself out, that it became prestigious and something to be valued. And so, as we wind up today, there's a song that I won't attempt to sing it for you, but I love the ending quality to it. And that is, may you run and not grow weary. May your life be filled with song. And may the road you travel always lead you home. because home is where we can be authentic. And as we are authentic, no matter where we are, and no matter, that we are giving it from the generousness, from the joy, from the authenticity of our heart, and that we can look on others and try to believe that, just like your son's fiance, that regardless of what, we want to see the intention of whatever they're giving us, whether it's a critical comment or whether it's a wonderful blessing of a comment, that we want to take it from a place that we don't add to something more than's really there.
Yeah.
And that way.
Well, thanks for that topic today, Mona, and thanks everyone for your comments. And so I'm going to stop the recording here for Greet the Week, and we hope to see everybody again next week.
Mm-hmm.